Hello and welcome to season 2 of Harry Potter and the First Time Readers. Very excited about this season. This season is with Lizzy, who's one of my best friends, and she has read the series once already, but has forgotten pretty much 99.9% of it. Sorry, Lizzy, but you kind of have. Although this podcast has been so fun to record because Lizzy kind of remembers some of it here and there. So like later on in the books, the synapses are firing and they're starting to land on certain things. And we have currently wrapped up book 6 and we have all the recordings of that till book 6. So we are going to release those very, very quickly. We're releasing all those probably in the next 2 weeks. And we are starting on book 7 very, very quickly too, which will be on our YouTube channel. We are going to live stream those on a public, setting because we're live streaming all of them to our members, but now we're going to start live streaming all of the book 7 discussions to everyone. So you can join us on our YouTube channel, which is First Time Readers. Just type in First Time Readers on YouTube and you'll find us. But Lizzy is brilliant. She's hilarious. Most of the discussions on season 2 are less about theorizing for what's going to happen and more so about ethical questions and, which sounds strange, but it's really interesting discussions in season 2. Like Lizzy, as you saw from the sneak peek of season 2, is much more interested in about like some of the ethical questions that wizards and witches and the whole Harry Potter universe has. So we end up in some serious discussions, and she's probably changed my mind more than anybody else has on anything that's in Harry Potter. She has given me some really, really fascinating and interesting theories, and she's completely changed my mind on a few really, really fascinating things. So stay tuned for all of season 2 coming out, which is going to be very, very quick. Season 2, book 1, all of the podcasts in book 1 are going to be released tomorrow. Yes, that is right, tomorrow. And then books 2, which is the Chamber of Secrets, is going to be released probably all on Friday. And then almost every 2 or 3 days, we're going to release an entire book until we get to book 7. And book 7 will be released like the normal, probably every Monday, until we get caught up. So that is something to be looking forward to. We're going to release all these podcasts kind of in one go. But I also want to say that Lizzy started reading Lord of the Rings, and I told her to stop because neither of us have read that. And so initially we were going to record the Fellowship of the First Time Readers, and we kind of both held off on that, but that is really the primary thing that me and Lizzy are going to do. So as soon as we finish Harry Potter, we're going to transition into the Fellowship of the First Time Readers. So if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, jump on for that. It'll be released on the same it'll be called Fellowship of the First Time Readers, and the podcast probably will be renamed to First Time Readers, so we can do a bunch of different books and call it the First Time Readers of whatever fill in the blank book. So if you are interested in if you're interested in Lord of the Rings, you can jump on for that as well. As we're very, very excited for everything that's going to happen. Got lots of other plans. The season 1 crew is going to come back pretty quickly. We're going to record some intermittent episodes, so don't worry, they're not leaving. Season 1 crew is still alive and well and kicking. They're excited for their second read, and we're going to go into some other books and do some other stuff with season 1 crew. But enjoy season 2. It's really fun. And this is a full episode, just an intro of Lizzy. So yeah, enjoy this. And I hope that you guys, give me your feedback, rate the podcast, review it. Let me know what you think. Okay, the first thing of what I'm looking for you to do, can you introduce yourself and just tell me your experience with Harry Potter, how you first started reading it, why you started reading it, and if you liked it, give me like a little bit of background on it.
Okay, my name is Lizzy.
Hi, Lizzy.
I started reading it because you told me to read it, and I'm one of those people that you started off on Harry Potter, and I fell in love with it. I put it right back on the top of my TBR, like I gotta go back, gotta do this again, and then it's like 2 years later and I finally made it back, so we're doing it again. But I love it.
It's gonna be fun because I feel like in the beginning of the podcast I mentioned that I recruited a few people to read this and I'm like starting to have them all on the podcast. You, Eric, yeah. I'm like, we could do David, and we can do Emma. We can have like a bunch of random people that I recruited to read this on the podcast, and we can just talk about how good this book is. You liked it when you first read it, right?
Yeah, I think I approached it like it's not all that. Like I didn't have like a great expectation for it, but then I actually like was like, wow, this is good.
Then you like
He
fell
was
in love with
right.
it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are you reading it for the second time?
I feel like I forgot a lot of it and I wanted to. Well, I started listening to the podcast
Mm-hmm.
and then I was like remembering all these great things that I had forgotten. And I was like, okay, I just need to start over again. And it's funny because I have like these memories of the overarching themes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I know who I liked, I know
Yeah.
who I disliked. But then so much in between that is gone from my memory.
Yep.
And I'm just like reading it. I'm still having these moments of like, oh my gosh.
That's
This
why
is
a second
happening.
time read is so much fun because you read it for the first time and everything doesn't like sink in completely.
Mhm.
It does for Danny, who's reading it for the first time, because he's literally taking meticulous notes on every little
Yeah.
page. But for someone who's just casually reading for this for the first time, and like if you were trying to read it fast, your mind's like a sieve. It's like, things are gonna fall through. But who were your favorites when you first started reading? First of all, what's your house?
Okay, I'm Gryffindor,
All right.
but I'm confused because I was like, I feel like Slytherin too.
Oh wow!
So
all right.
I feel like Harry Potter in that sense, where
Nice.
it's like you should be Slytherin, but I'll put you in Gryffindor. So that because I took multiple of the tests,
Mhm.
not like trying to come out with a certain outcome, but the first time I took it, when I was reading it the first time, I got Gryffindor,
Okay.
and I was like happy, that's great. And then it said my second was Slytherin. And then like another test I took, it told me I was Slytherin. I was like, well, I don't know what to do anymore. Now I feel bad.
No, most people are multiple houses. Everyone who takes it, I know, they have like a primary and a secondary house almost. Like I'm mostly a Hufflepuff, but in some tests that I've taken, I've gotten Gryffindor.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
I could see how for me, it's Gryffindor or Slytherin. I could see like both of that. Maybe we'll get into it as we go
We'll
through.
go through
But like
sorting.
there's bits and pieces. But I don't hate Slytherin. I'm not like
Yeah.
I'm not a Slytherin hater.
Well, okay, so this is one thing. I'm gonna go on a lot of rants in this one because you've read it before, so I can go on these rants, and I've been waiting to go on these rants for a long time. Is when you first read the series, Slytherin are always just seen as the bad guys. But when you read it for another, like a second time, a third time, on your 10th read, you're gonna realize how good Slytherin is.
10.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are some Slytherins out there. Like Slytherin has great attributes to it. Now there's dark wizards because they crave ambition, but like Slughorn was, he's like a little slimy, but he's like a kind of a good wizard. Everyone still wishes in the movies that there were some Slytherins who stayed back in the fight, like the Battle of Hogwarts.
Mhm.
But Slytherin's a good house to be in. It's a good house to be proud of. Who are your favorite characters? Or who was your favorite character if you have one?
My favorite is Sirius.
Why?
100%. I just
Wow.
love him so much. Like everything he says, I just love how he speaks. I love like his character development from just like you think he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
This is great now that we
absolutely.
have all this freedom to
I
talk
know.
about this. You think he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
You think he's out to kill Harry. And then they kind of just like have this awesome development. And then
And it's crazy within like
I think he dies, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I've like read
Yeah.
I'm up back to Azkaban.
Okay.
So I have to read
Yeah.
4, 5, 6, 7. But he like falls into something, and I just remember like almost crying and being like,
Yeah.
my favorite character is gone. Like, how am I supposed to get through this?
It was funny too because you were one of the people that when you started reading and you were like just expressive when you were reading, I was like, you need to just record yourself reading. You were like some of the initial thoughts of this podcast because I remember you sent me a video or you like posted a video on TikTok of you like reading this. And I was like, your expressions are so good. I'm like, just record yourself reading
Yeah.
and just post that somewhere because people
Can I
are
just say
dying
that's
for that.
mortifying
Yeah,
going back and looking at that? Because I remember some of the texts I sent to you because I was
Yeah.
reading it like, and I would text
Yeah.
you and be like, what's going on? So I was reading as a Prisoner of Azkaban, and I was like, I needed just to jog my memory. I was like, I don't like the suspense. So I like searched it up in our messages. And I like spoiled something for myself again, like through our texts.
Really?
And I was like, what am I doing? I need to like stop looking at this. And then I found those videos of me reading and I was like, I can't believe I sent this. This is like
Those are
so
great.
crazy.
Those are so good. Because that is, I will tell you, like our podcast has gotten success on like these niche little channels because I cannot tell you what people would give up to be able to read this for the first time again.
Yeah.
Like that's the same thing with me. Like, and I remember the first recording that we did this podcast, I almost couldn't put it into words how much I wanted to read this for the first time. It's like a series that just has stuck with me, and it's just such a well written series. So people were. I mean, you haven't read it you're reading it for the second time, but people are envious of people who read it for the first time, like to see like where the mystery is, like where the plot holes are. Not necessarily plot holes, but like even the Sirius reveal. It's crazy that in almost a page, you go from hating Sirius and thinking he's the worst person that he wants to kill Harry to like, he's like, Harry, you want to come stay with me for the summer?
Yeah.
And you're like, yes,
like,
go
this
Harry.
is
This is the best.
Yeah.
You're going to have a great summer.
So
and then
good.
you're devastated because then he has to go on the run. It's like how she
know.
plays with your emotions. It's so good.
The more you read it, the less you're on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
Which is annoying. Which
I
is
know.
great that I forgot so much of it
Yes.
because I can experience it halfway again.
Yes.
But
Because you didn't.
because I'm like, wait, why did I love Sirius?
Yeah.
Because I'm reading this thing. Because I was like, I thought he was like the heartthrob almost. And then I'm reading his like his teeth are yellow, his hair is like matted down to his knees.
You're going through a phase and when you're reading it for the
I
first
was
time.
like, what was I doing here? Like, let's circle back to this because this is not okay.
I mean, at different time periods, there are different characters who are different heartthrobs for sure. When you read it for like a few different times, different characters are, more or less attractive to you, to be honest. That's like, there's tons of people who are in our like subreddit or in our like Discord, and people have huge crushes on Lupin. But some people are like, Lupin's like weird.
Well, let's
Lupin's
also
gross.
add that I haven't watched the movies.
Wait.
And I am like super pure with my imagination.
No way.
Which is part of the reason why I don't remember so much, because I totally am not immersed in it, because I don't look at the memes. I don't look at all like the photos and the clips, because I just want to maintain my perfect imagination of who everyone is.
I am so jealous of that.
And in theory, like I know what Snape looks like.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
know what Voldemort looks
Yeah.
like. But really, those are Snape, Voldemort, and the trio, like Harry, Hermione, and Ron, is like the only people that I actually know what they look like in the movies. But I still can get to a point where I'm not picturing them, which I think is so cool.
That is, you know how rare that is? You are like an absolute rarity when it comes to, because
I'm a purist.
yeah, I'm so jealous. Well, one of the interesting thing was when I first started reading the series, the movies were coming out. So I had finished like book 3 and then I went to go see the movies. So up until book 3 or 4, it was my imagination. And then that got ruined because the movies, I just have the movie character stuck in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that helped me like fix that was the illustrated version. I talk about this all the time on the podcast. Jim Kay did an illustrated version of Harry Potter. And when I like looked at the images that he drew of like Harry and Ron, I was like, it like set my mind free from the movie characters. And I really think of that. But it brought me back to some of the characters that I initially thought of in my own imagination, which is like, that's really how you want it. I'm so jealous.
Are the illustrations based on the book descriptions?
Yeah.
So they're like pretty
They're
accurate.
pure. Yeah. They're so good. They are unbelievable. They're so good.
But some things I know I'm imagining them completely wrong. And then starting over, I'm like,
still-
oops, that's not that's not what they look like.
That's what like you can like refine your imagination on that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Why now? I'm actually curious to know how much you remember about the series. So like you said almost as a question, did Sirius die?
Yeah, well, like he fell into this like portal thing, right? Yeah. So I'm ridiculously forgetful. Like it's unbelievable
So
that
this is
I could
essentially like
survive.
a first time read again.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I don't know. I think I remember more tied to my emotions, or like when Umbridge sent the Dementors. I remember that because that was such a betrayal moment.
Yes.
And I recorded that and I sent that to you
Yeah.
and I rewatched that, which is like, again, mortifying.
Yeah.
But I remember that. So then reading about Dementors in, I think, book 2 or 3, 2.
The book 3, really.
I'm like, are these sent by Umbridge? Because I have like these like weird strings attached to everything that are not necessarily like the right way.
Everything evil is Umbridge.
Yes. We'll just group her in there. But I don't know, because then some things I'm remembering them wrong.
Yeah.
And it's just so much information. The plot is so complicated that there's just like no way I could remember it.
Yeah.
And I think you said it in one of the episodes too, where you're like, even your favorite books, you can't necessarily explain the plot of.
Yeah.
So I feel that.
Yeah, that is. I'm like maybe a little bit of a forgetful person, but I was just talking about that. There was one of these clues in a crossword that we were doing as a group, and it was a book called Pachinko. And someone asked me because I had read it and I didn't remember the author's last name, and I couldn't really tell you what that book's about. Like most of the plot details have like faded through my mind. And
do you remember it like, oh, I love that person though? Or
yeah, I remember that I love certain characters.
Yeah.
There's a few characters in different books that I love, that I truly love with the bottom, like from the bottom of my heart. But I don't remember what the majority of the story was about. Like the characters are really what stick out for me. So there's two in particular that I love. One was, it was from a book called The Dutch House by Anne Patchett.
Mm-hmm.
And the character's name was Maeve. And she was just so cool. Like I loved her so much. I was like, I want to read another character like this. This is like the coolest character. And then another one was Leah Price from the Poisonwood Bible. She's like one of my favorite characters.
Mm-hmm.
And when I reread that, I was actually a little disappointed when I reread it because I was like, she didn't live up to the expectations that I had in my mind that I made out for her in the first time that I read it. But she's still one of my favorite characters. I love her so much.
Yeah. I feel like once you fall in love with a character, you kind of uncontrollably morph them into something that's like even more up your alley.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, 100%.
Yeah.
Do you remember, maybe this is an emotional question, but did you shed any tears when you read it for the first time?
Shockingly, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
that's fine.
Shockingly, I cry a lot. And I think I was in this time where I was like, I refused to cry.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I remember almost crying at the end in the last book, like during the battles. But still, I can't even tell you what that battle was about. Like, I just remember people were dying.
Do you remember where it was?
It was on the lawn, right?
Okay. Ish. Yeah.
I think it was in front of the castle.
Yeah.
That's the other fun thing. I have all these maps and places that are like my imagination.
That's kind of cool.
But that was really the only part. Almost cried this time around when Ginny got taken down to Tom Riddle.
Oh,
that kind of made me tear up for a second. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't deserve any of that. She's just so pure.
I know. She really is.
So I feel like this time around, I'll definitely probably cry.
Good,
and I will
good.
tell you every little detail.
Do you remember, just another few rapid fire ones just to jog your memory, but do you remember what characters die in this?
Nope. Serious?
Okay. Wow, so this is kind of like a first time experience.
I'm this bad. Wait. Some of the Weasleys die, I think.
Okay. It is going to be different for you.
Neville dies, right?
Maybe. I'm not going to spoil things if you're wrong or right on some of this.
No, because I remember there was such like a sad, innocent death. And I can't help but think that would be Neville.
I think this is what's going to happen. I think you don't remember them clearly now, but when you're like a few chapters away from these moments, it's gonna like come back to you in a storm. And I think you're gonna like have emotional moments before the deaths actually happen, because you're gonna remember that and you're gonna be like, no, I know this character's fate.
That's so true.
It's gonna be rough.
Voldemort dies. I remember at the end they're in like this big white thing that's like, what is this place? And that was like a TikTok on audio, like they're like, I don't even know how it goes. Am I
King's
live?
Cross.
Is this whatever?
Yeah.
I remember that part. I remember being so confused. I was texting you at like 3 a.m, spamming your phone. I might have been crying at that point. I don't know. But I just sent you like 30 texts in a row. I was like, what is going on? I'm so confused.
So good.
So Voldemort dies. They're in this like liminal space of death, but they don't actually die.
Yeah.
I do kind of have a theory that like Dumbledore like is dead. And he's like reincarnated because he's like so all-knowing that I feel like there's no way that he's not like already like taken some potion, or like maybe he did the thing with the Sorcerer's Stone and isn't saying it, because Dumbledore is such a liar.
Ooh, wow.
So I don't know.
Why do you say he's such a liar?
Well, even just in the first book, there's been so many times he's withholding information.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is kind of manipulative with the way he tells information. And I first time I read this, I approached it like Dumbledore's not good, Snape's not bad,
Yeah.
Harry's not all that, blah blah blah. Like everything is square one.
Yeah.
I have no expectation, and I feel like that kind of helped me because I'm not just like, oh, I love Dumbledore, because I don't know. So I still don't trust him in like some way.
Yeah, for sure. And it's your second time read, so like up until when you read it for the first time, he's like your favorite. Then he dies, and you're like, "Oh, that's so sad." And then the seventh book,
Dumbledore dies.
you kind of lose your trust in him. You don't remember that?
What? I don't know. What book does
I
he
just
die
spoiled
in?
that for you. Oh,
yeah,
God.
you just said you wouldn't.
I know. That's the one. That's
well,
like
there goes my
big
theory.
one. No, it still could be your theory because he could die a second time if he's reincarnated or something like that, or some magical
It's his
thing.
second death. Maybe he's a cat and he has 9 lives.
There you go.
Maybe he's Crookshanks. What? There you go.
There are some theories on Crookshanks, actually. We'll talk about that when we get to Crookshanks.
Yeah.
Do you remember how Voldemort stays alive?
Well, there's like a bunch of different opportunities for him to do so. But I know he has to feed on the life of other people.
Okay. He's
Something
like a little
that?
parasitic. Yeah.
Yeah, because on Quirrell, is that how you say his name?
Yep.
He like becomes the back of his head, which is like so interesting. And then I know like they had to drink the unicorn blood.
Yeah.
Which I hate that scene.
I know.
Crazy. But he is so like horcruxes.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's the word I was looking
there.
for.
We got there. Yeah, he like divides his soul up, and then he's barely human.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has to survive. I don't know. There's a big hole in my knowledge.
This is gonna be great because I didn't know. Yeah, again, when you read it for the first time, like a lot of the plot details kind of fall through your head, but
he has to kill Harry because he has to destroy the Horcrux, right? Who has to destroy the Horcrux?
I don't know what you're talking about.
We'll edit this question.
Yeah. No, this is gold. No. This is such gold. Because I want to. It's actually fun that you don't remember as much as.
This is like 1.5 times reader. Like we're not quite there.
No, this is gonna be great. Because it's going to be like you're experiencing things for the first time again, but we can still have deep dive discussions on a lot of things that happen in this. So this is gonna be great. I can't wait. Yeah. I'm going to try to not spoil as much as I can for you, like some of the huge details. But
I mean, how bigger can you get than Dumbledore dying?
That's kind of true. That was like,
but
one of the
I
big
feel
ones.
like it's not really a spoiler.
Yeah,
like you can have freedom because it's not going to shock me.
Okay.
In the same way that it would the first time.
So here's another side question. Do you remember how many Horcruxes there are?
I think there's 7 or 6.
Do you remember what they are?
Okay. Here comes my knowledge from listening to the podcast. Harry himself.
Okay. So that's really all I wanted to know. If you remember that Harry himself was
that's
one,
like the only one I remember.
I was going to see if you remembered everyone except for Harry himself. Then we were going to have some interesting discussions.
No.
But,
and when I was listening to the podcast, I just started randomly in book 6 or 7.
Oh, okay.
So then that's when I realized I was like, I forget so much of the build up to this and I have to start over.
I know the build up. Yeah. Ugh, these books are so good. I'm gonna gush about these books.
Yeah.
Every single time, but
the writing itself is so good too.
Yeah.
Like it's just such an enjoyable read, even if you know everything about it.
People discount that a lot. People discount that. Like I took in some writing classes that I was in, I had some teachers who discounted that she was actually a good writer. And I'm gonna come up with a lot of counter examples of why she is actually a really exceptional writer. Like the foreshadowing that she puts in here, like how she actually I don't think a ton of fantasy writers are really, really great storytellers. I think fantasy writers are really good at world building.
Yeah.
But sometimes they are crap at like telling an actual good story. Like there's a few exceptions. Like I think C.S. Lewis is one exception where he actually knows how to tell a story more than he knows how to build a world. But Tolkien was a world builder. Like there's all sorts of others, like George R.R. Martin, like the Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, the writer. He's better at world building. Dune, the guy who wrote Dune, is a world builder, which is like, that's a Mark read that series and he's like, you read like the first half of the first book and that's like it. You don't have to read any more because it's ridiculous after that. And then there's like all sorts of others, like Brandon Sanderson, people like him, but I tried to read him. I'm like, he's not as good of a writer as Joe Rowling is. So I think she's an exceptional writer. I'm excited to talk about like her little writing tidbits later too.
I never read fantasy. Like, I swear off fantasy and romance.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
Why?
I don't know. I just
What's
don't enjoy.
your current genre of writing that you're reading the most of?
Memoirs are my favorite.
Yeah,
for sure. Last year I was trying to read a bunch of memoirs.
What's your favorite memoir?
Ooh, I have no idea. That's such a good question.
Yeah.
I really love traumatic memoirs. Glass Castle.
Oh, it's one of my
So
favorites.
good.
Maybe the best one ever, yeah.
Actually, I like Educated better.
I
I just relate to her like thought processes more.
Yeah.
I read one. I think it's called The Things They Carried, and it's a memoir kind of, but it's about the war. That was a trip.
It's a good one.
That was crazy. I love them. I don't know. I think it's cool because we'll get this out in the first episode, but my little motto for reading is I read to gain empathy and grow my perspective. So I feel like memoirs just lend themselves to that because I can put myself in other people's shoes.
They're both. And Zadie Smith once said that like she's talking about education and she talks about how reading stories is education of the emotions. And that has stuck with me. I'm like, why do we actually enjoy stories? Why do we tell stories? And I think it just educates our emotions. It like helps us process through life, figure things out. And I think Harry Potter does that exceptionally well for kids. That's why, like, you know, because you've been in some book clubs that I've run, like my obsession with children's literature is fierce, because if you can do that really well for children, then I think you're one of the greatest living writers. Like E.B. White is one of my favorite writers because the guy writes Charlotte's Web and he writes like a story that is talking about death and making death approachable for kids and like how to process and understand death. It's an unbelievable accomplishment that a writer can do that. And how J.K. Rowling actually is able to put themes of death and what true joy is and friendship and like how she's able to weave everything in this story. So you actually like arrive at this incredible moral after it is an absolute accomplishment. It's like just unbelievable what she's able to do, I think. Yeah.
And it starts like from book one all the way to the end.
Yep.
And you finish it and you just, wow.
Yep, I know.
It all comes together.
That's why, I mean, we can even jump into the books, but that's why one of my favorite chapters is in book one because of everything that she like puts in book one. And we were having a discussion about it with the season one crew. And I'm actually excited to talk about that one with you. So we're going to end this podcast here and we're going to start on the books. So thanks for joining us.